Now, after we have completed the part related to the reinforcement and if a reinforcement is required or no, we now go to the following step, which is to specify the joint type and the duct. So, as we are going back to the duct construction process, we have specified the duct gauge, we have specified the sheet metal thickness, we have specified if reinforcement is required or no. If it's required, we have specified how to check the reinforcement spacing gauge, duct and size type based on the approved types of SMACNA, and if it's not required, you will choose the duct gauge accordingly to use in your fabrication process. And in both cases, if it's not required and if you have completed specifying the reinforcement, now the next step is to specify the seams and the joints used in the duct, which are two types mainly: transverse joints and longitudinal joints or longitudinal seams. So this is our next step, which is to specify which type of joints you will be using in your duct construction. We now see the examples given in SMACNA for the transverse joints. You have the drive slip T1 and the T3, which is the reinforced. You have the standing drive slip, which is the T2. You have the plane slip or the S slip, which is the T5. You have the T6, the hemmed S slip. You have the reinforced S slip, T7. However, you need to know that the plane S slip is the most common to be used on the duct construction, and the normal drive slip unreinforced are the most common to be used in the duct construction. Owing to know that some details about application of these slips are given on the right side here according to SMACNA. For example, in the drive slip, gauge no less than 2 gauges than duct gauge and 24 gauge minimum, and the qualification as per reinforcement table 224, and T3 is given some notes for 3 when you are using it in reinforcement. And the standing drive slip, it's mentioned that there is some notes: fasten standing portions within 2 inch of each end, otherwise elsewhere 8 inch spacing or less. The second note is any length at 2 inch water gauge. The third is 36 inch maximum length at 3 water gauge, 30 inch maximum length at 4 inch water gauge, not allowed in 4 inch water gauge above. The S slip, no less than 2 gauges less than the duct gauge, 24 gauge minimum. When used on all 4 sides, fasten within 2 inch of the corners and 12 inch maximum intervals, 2 inch water gauge maximum pressure. So S slip is applicable up to 2 inch water gauge maximum only. However, the normal drive slip is applicable up to 4 inch. And usually the systems you will find will never be above 4 inch in the residential and commercial applications. The usual applications, they will not be higher than this range. And the second, you can see the transverse flange joints. We have said before that you have 2 types, the C and S slip, and the joints types. The joint types use a sort of a flange and a gasket in between to prevent leakage, or it can use a gasket as a sealant bolted by the 2 flanges. As we can see, we have the standing seam, we have the option to be reinforced, we have the welded flange with the option to be reinforced, and we have the companion angles, and each one have a reference number or symbol. And on the right side you can see the notes given by SMACNA to each of these transverse joints. The same is applicable here, but these are complex joints which are highly unlikely to be used in simples to avoid too much time joining the duct. So basically the most common type you will see is the normal drive slip and the S slip. You may see the standing drive slip, but it's not likely. So these are the transverse joints and the flanges. However, in the longitudinal joints, you have the Pittsburgh lock, the button bunch snap block, the grooved seam, and onwards. These are the types given in SMACNA for the longitudinal seam. However, the almost 95% of all cases, you can see the Pittsburgh lock is used on the fabrication of the duct, which have the same notes applied on the right here. For Pittsburgh lock, there is a pocket depth from 1 by 4 inch up to 5 by 8 inch, used on straight duct and fitting, and it's applicable up to positive 10 or negative 10-inch water gauge. The same applies here. Each of these longitudinal seams have its recommendations and notes required by SMACNA. However, I'm going to focus only on the Pittsburgh lock since this is used in the majority of the cases.